everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Atlantic Soap Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Campbell. Super excited. Sophie, you're my first New York guest, right? You guys are based in New York, right? Usually we're in ourselves in New Jersey. So I'm here with Sophie Poost of the EmpowHer network. We just went over that before this recording and I got all nervous. Classic. But I'm so happy to have you. I was doing my research like a good podcaster before the interview, and I was just so impressed by the organization. I've been admiring Stephanie Woodward, who's your director from afar, and I was really interested in the organization. So, Sophie, summarize it? What is the EmpowHer network?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, Disability EmpowHer Network is an organization that, like you said, is based in New York State, in Rochester specifically, but we have a national reach, and it's a nonprofit that's run by and for girls and women with disabilities that connects, motivates, and guides disabled girls and women to grow and to learn with our goal of building confidence and helping them reach their potential, which is like the fancy way to say that we create programs both as disabled women and girls for disabled women and girls that help our participants learn skills around leadership, around, career skills and independent living as well. We believe in everyone having the right to live the way they want to live. So helping people get the skills in order to do that is really where our goals lie.
Yup, that independent living philosophy that Centers for Independent Living are about. It's such a crucial philosophy. You're speaking my language, and it's still a radical idea, believe it or not, as we know, doing our work for people with disabilities to make their own choices and to live their own lives. But you guys, there's like camps, right? And mentors. So tell us a little bit about that, because it seems really awesome. It's about empowering, creating advocates and creating really involved and engaged women with disabilities that are in control of their decisions. So tell us a little bit more specifically about the program.
Yeah, so we have several programs, but our flagship program, I guess is what I would say, our first program that's really our big program is Empower Camp, which is the camp you're kind of discussing. It's a program for disabled girls or non-binary people 13 to 18. And the program is a year-long program, which we always joke that we shouldn't have named it camp because that's misleading, because it's a year-long mentorship program, essentially. So we bring these disabled youth to camp in the Adirondacks, where we teach them survival skills, we teach them independent living skills and leadership skills and advocacy skills, like you said, with the mentality that if you can do this in the middle of the woods where all of your comforts of modern day life are no longer there, then that should motivate you and that should help you believe that you can do it at home. So we have some people in our program who maybe their goal for that week at camp is to get better at transferring. And so we help them realize that, if you can transfer into your sleeping bag, then you can transfer into your bed. And yes, it might be hard and it might take some time, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, because our goal is to help them find the independence that they want. So we do that week of camping in the Adirondacks. We then, during that week, we match them with mentors who are also disabled women who are camping in the woods with us. And in that week, they start to come up with a plan to do a project around emergency management within their community. So in most cases, that means their hometown, their county, but sometimes some of our participants are thinking within the disability community, or more broadly thinking of community in that sense. And everyone comes up with their own project, and it's very individualized. So we've had, participants who have gotten evacuation chairs put into their schools because their evacuation plan at school is you're going to go and sit in the music room while everyone else leaves, and hopefully someone will remember to come get you if the emergency actually is real. Yeah, so
I know
we
that
have
experience. I know that experience. The plan for the fire drill is we tell you that there's going to be a fire drill and you wait downstairs, which is
yeah.
which is luckily my school did have one that we figured it out eventually. But you think about that, you're like, wait a minute, I don't think that's how the actual fire is gonna play out. So
Yeah, well, and it's wild because I mean, I think everyone has that experience, that experience where you're the one who like, okay, you're just gonna sit at the back of the room while everyone else does some like gets free, like survives the fire. But then when you're like in a circle around a campfire and someone else is like, wait a second, that's my school's plan too. And like camaraderie of like, we're all screwed. Great.
Right, we're all gonna die in this fight.
Yeah.
But then being like, hey, maybe I should, now that I have these skills at this camp, maybe I should say something about it. Like maybe it's not, something I should just accept.
Yeah, yeah. So we have helped them kind of create projects like that. So like we have evacuation chair projects, but we also have kids who say like, I want to help my emergency shelter be more accessible because we've had a lot of flooding in the past and it was not accessible to me. Or we've had a few kids who have talked to their school districts about what plans they have in place around gun violence. Like, how are you going to
Right.
protect me, kind of thing. So they're all different kinds of projects, really based around what they are interested in. And across the next year, they work with their mentor to kind of work on that advocacy, with our goal, of course, being, building these advocacy skills. So I've been a mentor. I'm in my third year of doing it, and I think as people who've like done advocacy for a while, you forget what things are hard,
Yeah.
or just not common knowledge. Like, I know like, oh, I can dig up so and so's name if I go on the internet and do this, but these teenagers, like, they've never had to like confront the school board. Like, they don't know what it's like
Right.
to go to a school board meeting. So like helping them understand the process of like who's in charge and how do you talk to them is something we kind of help them with across the year. And then once they complete their projects, the following summer, we go to Washington, D.C. and we do like a reunion, everyone gets to share about their projects, what they did, how they helped their community. We do like a little presentation night where we invite people like locally from the disability community, but also emergency management professionals, and say like, come hear about the projects they did and like get to know them. And then we also are trying to teach them some skills for moving past camp. So like, how do you talk about your project if you want to get a job? How can you, connect with someone via networking? And then we also take them to meet with their senator, or well, a
I
staff for
think
the
this is
senator, because
awesome.
let's be honest, senators don't usually show up to the meetings, but we've had a few actually.
Well,
Um,
staff makes the whole thing right anyway.
yeah, yeah. So we pick them, and it's so cool because like, and that's one of my favorite days because there's a little bit of anxiety. Like, you're going to an important person's office and telling them about your like what you've done and your advocacy work, and so there's a little bit of anxiety. But then like getting to see them in the room talking to like Senate staff and like sharing about, I did this and now my emergency shelter is accessible, and having these staffers really listen to these teenagers, it's incredible. And then they leave the building and they're like, I spoke at a senator's office. You can see the
Yes,
pride.
yes.
Um, which like
I
as
just
people
got a
who,
bill passed. I got a bill passed, and I just did it. We're good now. We solved issues. So what is?
yeah.
So tell us a little bit. What is the eligibility? Can anybody? Is it statewide? Is it limited to New York? What are the rules? Are there any for applying? How do you apply?
I'm actually so glad you asked this because applications are actually currently open. And they'll be open through mid-April. And the eligibility is we try to make it as low bar, so to speak, as many
Yes.
people as possible. So it's, nationwide. We've had people from Massachusetts, Rhode Island to Washington and everywhere in between. You got your rural kids from
That's
Montana,
awesome.
where they might as well be riding cows,
Oh
to like
yeah.
your kids in New York City. So we've had a whole breadth of people from across the nation. You have to be between the ages of 13 and 18 in July of that year. Um, and you have to be someone who identifies as a person with a disability. And we try really hard to communicate the cross disabilityness of our program. So, I mean, all of the programs we have, but we really want anyone who identifies with having a disability being there. So, our big push is we want to help kids understand interdependence. So, if I'm a wheelchair user and I need help eating, which personally I'm not, but if I'm someone who needs help eating and there's someone who has maybe an intellectual disability who doesn't need help eating but might need reminders to eat, we
Right.
might have them sit together. And so like the person who's has an intellectual disability is feeding the person with a physical disability while being reminded to eat themselves, trying to help people understand like, hey, if you're a wheelchair user and you can't get close enough to the fire pit to build the fire, you can at least tell us how to build the fire.
Exactly.
Really building off this idea of like everyone has something they can bring to the community, and the community will flourish if we all work together. So really cross disability in that sense. And
That's
then
exactly.
we're open to girls or non-binary people who identify within like who feel comfortable within like a more feminine aligned space. But those are the extent of it. We really want to invite anyone to be involved because there's unfortunately sometimes siloing within the disability community of like,
Exactly.
you know, if I have this disability, but at least I'm not this disability, like
Correct.
really awful kind of hierarchy. And so we're trying to get ahead of that while people are
I'm
still,
low functioning or whatever that means, or I'm high functioning or all that
yeah.
stuff. Like that hierarchy that we say we're against, even when you're in the disability space, and but you have to watch your own bias too, and you perpetuating
Mhm.
things that you've taken. So I would really encourage anybody who falls within this criteria to look at the website. I mean, I love the inclusive language on the website. Talked about non-binary and transgender people just so inclusively about, well, just call and talk to us and let's discuss and see if this is a good fit for you. So, if you're looking at it and you're like, well, I have this disability, or maybe I'm non-binary and I don't know. It's a real inclusive vibe and a real inclusive atmosphere, and call and talk about it. And I just it just sounds like an awesome experience. And I love the attitude of, because that interdependence thing about people with disabilities learning like there's nothing wrong with needing help with things, because we're constantly
Mm.
told that like where we're constantly framed that we're a burden a lot of times, and like our non-disabled peers don't need help with anything. But one of the things you'll realize is that you're helping your non-disabled friends and peers and loved ones all the time, but it doesn't get acknowledged as help. It's just like,
Mhm.
oh, we're just doing it. But a lot of times the non-disabled world looks at what they're doing to you and we're just helping. But no, we're all connected. We're all dependent on each other.
Well,
So
yeah, and like you said, like it's okay to need help and it's okay to
yes,
ask for help. Like that's something that, we really like our mentors and our young leaders, like some of the adult women, that's something that they like process for themselves during our program because yeah, like we all need help sometimes. Like you're saying, like, I'm gonna go get my coffee at a coffee shop. Yes, I could make that at home, but I didn't. And I asked for help and got coffee at a coffee shop. Like I'm
right,
not the one teaching my children, a teacher is. Like that's all the ways our communities are interdependent. And asking for help is something that should not
right.
be seen as negative.
Should not be seen as negative. It's great. So, Sophie, let's talk a little bit about you. How did you get involved in this disability world? How did you get involved here? And and tell us your superhero origin story. How'd you get your powers? I'm a big Marvel fan, so how'd you get your powers, and how'd you end up here?
Yeah, so and it's so funny because I feel like anytime someone asks me this question, I'm like, what all do I say? Kind of thing. Like, do I start at the beginning?
Day
So
one, no
yeah,
kidding.
yeah. I was born. No. So I acquired a physical disability when I was a small child. I don't have a lower leg, like I'm missing my right leg. And so like usually people are like, okay, and that's it. Like end of story. Like if a stranger asks me like, oh, like what happened to you? Like all I have to say is like, oh, I lost my leg when I was a kid, and they're happy to move on.
Like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But the real story really is like, so I grew up in a very rural setting and I didn't really have exposure to like disability very much. I had a cousin who had an intellectual disability, but like because I didn't get exposed to disability that much, I didn't really register that we were like in community, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Going back to that hierarchy discussion. And then I went to college, and as many people do, I started to like, explore my identities, learning about myself. And I didn't ask for accommodations because I like didn't think I was disabled. Like I
Yeah.
don't do that. And what really led to some chaos was, so I use a prosthetic leg and I started to have issues with it, so I had to use crutches. And all of a sudden, the world became a lot smaller and a lot less accessible to me. I like couldn't get into any of the buildings on my own. Like I just started to experience the inaccessibility that was always there for me, but like when I was a kid, you know, you have your like you have people who are
Yeah.
advocating for you. You know how that is? Like
Right, you don't realize if you're lucky enough to have it, how much your support system was doing for you, and then
yeah.
it goes away. It's like, oh wait, somebody else. I didn't even have to think about this. Now I have to figure this out.
Yeah, like shoot, like I need to be able to use an accessible bathroom now, and there's not one like in the residence hall I live in because
Right.
like I don't live on the right floor or what have you. And so like crap, what do I do kind of thing. And so that kind of was like where I started to be like, oh, I think I need to understand this better about myself so I know how to advocate for myself. And then I kind of went off the deep end into like researching disability culture and like, you know, following all these people that you see on social media, like going in the deep end, reading all the books and started to kind of try and get myself exposed. And around that same time was also 2017, which some people might not know. The summer of 2017 was when health insurance was under attack, basically. And
Right.
so
For those
that's
of you
when a
that
lot of what?
those of you that don't know, that was when the Trump got elected and the Republican Congress was trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, also referred to as Obamacare. And yes, that was right about the time I got involved, started the SIL, got became director of the SIL too. So yes, tell us about that. It's a very important part of recent disability history.
Well, yeah. So when the ACA was under attack, then it also caused like some issues because the ACA was what covered like pre-existing conditions, you know. So a disability is a pre-existing condition. So all of a sudden our healthcare was essentially under attack. And I was a little bit on the sideline. Like I got involved with like social media advocacy, but I was watching these videos of people going and doing die-ins and like protesting in Mitch McConnell's office and getting dragged out. And I was like, whoa, these people are cool. Like they're doing it on a level that I would like to do it on. Like I want to be doing the die-in in that room. And so then I started following them on social media and like kind of trying to track them. And that's when I figured out what ADAPT was. And that's when I started to like learn about CILs and Centers for Independent Living. And so then, you know, that I was in my senior year of college learning about this whole process. And I was like, I want to do this, but I don't know what to look into Google to find how would I get to be this.
I'm just trying to figure this out. I've been there.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
trying to figure this
And
out.
I somehow came across systems advocacy. I figured out that it's called systems advocacy. And I saw a job opening for a systems advocate at a Center for Independent Living that had an ADAPT chapter that was associated with it. And I applied and I got an interview. I did okay in the interview. I remember leaving and telling my mom, like, I don't know. Like, and I'm fresh out of college, so, you know,
Yeah,
like I'm
yeah. You're just like, I can't believe they're interviewing me right now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
still getting past that
Look
part.
at all these people in suits. Like, yeah. And so this is where I get to say that the executive director of Disability Empower Network happened to be the director of advocacy at that Center for Independent Living and was the one who brought me in to interview. And so, you know, she loves to tell her side of the story, which is that she thought it was hilarious and really was what clinched the deal for her was that when she asked if I had any questions, I asked the room, like the whole advocacy team was here, and I asked the whole room, like, yeah, like I confirmed, like, okay, everyone here is disabled. Yes. If you could have a different disability, what would you have and why?
Oh my God, it's such an awesome question.
And I was just like, honestly, like in retrospect, I think I was just trying to like fill the air while I could think of a different question.
I
But
love
like for a
I
room of
love
like disabled advocates, they were all like, "This
it.
is a great question," and like you know. The people who knew sign language were like, oh, I'd be deaf because I already know sign language and the deaf culture and blah blah blah. And it was going all back and forth. And all this to say, like, I'm sure there were doubts about me as someone who was very green and very new to the disability community and all the philosophies and culture. But I think that question really helped them be like, oh, we think she's gonna get it. Like if she doesn't maybe have it now, but she'll have it and she'll be able to do this stuff. And so I got hired, and from there I got really into like, you know, I worked at a SIL in advocacy, and I was doing
You're
specifically.
in now. You got the bug. You're in.
Yeah, so I was doing housing and employment advocacy, and it was, you know, it went from, a couple years earlier being like, how do I advocate to myself to, oh, these people like are looking at me and I'm a professional advocate now, kind of thing. And so yeah, it was just a really cool opportunity to like get into it. And yeah, from there, I mean, I've ping-ponged around. I have kind of found that like my like favorite area of disability advocacy is really, helping people with the transition. I really like transition age, and helping people with that. And then, working with people to learn leadership and independent living skills and helping people realize like, the world may not be accessible to you, but that doesn't mean that like you can't still have your mark or make a difference on the world.
Right, right.
And so that's been a really cool time. And, the pandemic happened. Our executive director, Stephanie Woodward, who you mentioned, who was my boss at the SIL, started Disability Empower Network. And then she pulled me in. I was volunteering, and eventually she got funding and hired me. And now I'm here.
The classic, that's a great story. And I know people, because people with disabilities sometimes ask me, like, how do you get involved? How do you do it? And I just like, what you laid out is perfect. Like, you just got to go for it. You just got to get in the ground floor, start volunteering if you can't go for that interview. And
Show up.
and that's the thing. Yep, and that's what I tell people. Like, just keep showing up in rooms, and people are like, "Oh, you want to do something fine." Because nonprofits and other organizations, we're just so happy to have people working, and if they're not happy you're there, then that's not a good space for you anyway. So if it's it's so just show up, find your community, and there's so much opportunity out there, and just go for it. And I know, and what you said too about feeling like, I've heard this said too, and I felt this way too, like you don't belong at that table. And it's like you start realizing the more you do this, yeah, I actually do belong at this table. Like I actually do have something, not that I know everything, but I have something to contribute and I have something to add, and I belong here like everybody else. And I wanted to, as we're wrapping up, because I know we both have other things to do, but we could talk we can do like 2 hours actually. But I wanted to talk about how can the disability world be more inclusive and empowering to women with disabilities? Because like I'm just speaking for myself, so I'm like a white guy in a leadership position, and I really try, even though I'm not perfect, to like be aware that I have certain advantages in a room that other people with disabilities and other people from different communities, especially women, may not have. So how do we, as a community, kind of check ourselves and make sure we're elevating women to leadership roles and to be involved? How do we create those spaces? So do you have any advice or thoughts on that? Because it's something I think about a lot.
That's a big question, and that's something I could spend 2 hours talking on just that alone. But I think the thing that I would really suggest is, we just said like part of it is just showing up. It's the other way around too. It's the inviting of like, oh, there's this opportunity that I saw that I doesn't work for me. Who could I like share that with? We within like our staff kind of, whenever we see like an internship show up, a job opportunity show up, we say, do we know any disabled women who would be good for this? Like none of us are X, Y, and Z, but maybe they would be good for it. And then saying to that person, like, hey, I think you'd be really good for this. Like helping crush the imposter syndrome. Like there's a lot of, and I don't have it on hand, but there's a lot of like research and data about how women, and I would wager there's not research on it, but women with disabilities especially are less inclined to apply for jobs, take on a leadership position, apply for an internship or a scholarship unless they believe they have all of the qualifications listed, whereas men are more likely to be like, shoot my shot, see what happens,
Yeah.
you know?
I'll go fail up.
Yeah,
I'll
so
go
being
for
that
it.
person who's like, hey, you should do this, like even if you don't get it, like at least you tried kind of thing. At least you had got your foot in the door kind of thing. So really doing that and encouraging that. And then if you're at the table saying like, hey, like, why am I like one of the things I love saying is like, there's a conversation about youth and the youngest person probably 30. Like maybe we should ask a person who's still young, like,
Right,
like
yeah.
identifying where there are holes and being like, and even going so far as to be like, hey, maybe this person would be good. Like, maybe you should connect with so and so because like X, Y, and Z, I think is huge. And I also think like, so one of the things that we do at Empower Camp and in all of our programs is we teach people not to say sorry as much. We call it the S word. We say you can't say the S word because women especially apologize too much. We apologize for our existence. Like, can you hand me that salt? I'm sorry for like bothering you, but can you hand me that salt? Like, just say like I need the salt. And so really just like encouraging people to take up space, like, and accepting when someone does. I think we encourage people to say, instead of saying sorry, maybe say thank you. Like, sorry I was late can be thank you for your patience with me. And that can change the dynamic in a room, a dynamic in a relationship by allowing that person to take up space. So really encouraging people to not apologize for existing. And I think that's something within the disability community, going back to everything we talked about already, like, you feel like you can't ask for help, so you feel like you have to apologize that you're existing and need help, and that's not the case. Like, you deserve to be here, you deserve to exist, you deserve to take up space, and what you're doing is you're not hurting anyone when you say like, oh, like, I'm sorry, can I get by you? Like, no, just tell the person to move. Like, if they're in your way, move. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's
No,
what
I
comes to
think
my
those
mind.
were great answers. I love it because I've been in rooms as a director where people are always saying nobody ever shows up to X meeting, whatever X meeting is. But then you gotta turn that around and be like, well, are we like inviting or like are we like we're all because you get close to people, you can get like clicked up unintentionally, and it's like
Mhm.
you said, we get we'll sit there and we'll go, we need more young people. And it's like, when was the last time anyone invited anybody that wasn't in our immediate circle of leaders that we already know? So I just think that's true. Like, yes, people all over need to show up to these spaces and be active, but we need to do our part as leaders, like as opening a door of being like, is it accessible? Is it welcoming? You know, isn't is it, when people give input, is that encouraged or is it like, oh, why is that person talking? So there are just these little things.
Exactly. Oh, I hate when people are like, "Oh, we want your feedback," and then like, like someone offers good feedback, and the person's just like, "I don't really agree with you." So it's just like, okay, why
Right,
did you invite that person
right,
then?
right,
Like,
right.
why
And why do you
listen
want,
to
and
them?
it's fine if you don't agree, but why do you want everybody in the room to agree with, like that's not helpful. Like, I thought, like, it's good to get different ideas. Like, welcome the challenge. Welcome being challenged instead of we can get
Hmm.
so defensive. And it's human. It's just part of being human. But I just loved what you said about making sure that we're inviting and that we're living up to what we preach in souls and in this community of being inclusive. Because sometimes we don't always do that because we're human, but it's, you got to challenge yourself. Like, are all are the roles being offered when the job gets posted? Is it being posted where people with all different kinds of disabilities and all over the community can see it, or is it just being posted in places where the same people get to see it? So I just think that's a great point. And so what would, if you have anything else, how would you like to wrap this up? What would you say in closing to encourage somebody to apply for your wonderful program? How would you say, what would be you gave such a good case, but let's say you're talking to somebody who's scared. They haven't they're young and they've never done anything like this, and they're like New York, that you might as well send them to a different planet. You might as well send them. They live in Oklahoma, and they're like, you're gonna take me, and they have disabilities, and they're like, how am I even gonna do this? It's a whole thing. So what would you tell them? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say like well, first of all, I'd probably ask them more questions about what it is they're afraid about because
Right.
I sometimes people just the more you ask them why, they start to realize, oh, I think I'm just afraid because of imposter syndrome or something like that. But I think what's important is that we take a really holistic approach. It's very disability centric. I think it's really hard to describe Empower Camp to people who like don't understand like disability culture, so to speak, because we are so driven by like meeting people where they're at, meeting everyone's needs, and helping people understand how to ask for what they need. And so, if someone's saying like, "Oh, I'm scared to travel," like, how can we help you with that? How
Yeah.
can we make this less scary? What can we do? And approaching it differently for each person. Like, someone with like Down syndrome is going to have different fears than someone who has spina bifida, and approaching that differently is important. But also, like, you have to do scary things to move forward, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah,
Like,
that's awesome.
the biggest thing, like, all the best things that have happened in my life have been things that I, hit the submit button while like scared, like, oh, like, biting my fingernails. And so, if it's something that scares you, question whether that's a good scary, I would say. And also, if nothing else, like reach out to us and we'll talk you into it. So if you're scared, let us talk you into it.
One of my staff members, and it was when I was just starting, we started up together, and the best piece of advice she gave me was, the growth can be scary. Growth, like, embrace can be
Mm-hmm.
scary. It's okay. It's part of the process. And and anybody who's ever moved on to whatever their next stage of life is and growth has gone through that fear. So just there's support out there and push past it. And it's gonna be one of those things where when you start working with somebody like Stephanie, you're like, well, why was I so scared? Now I have this whole community. And guess what? Here's the other thing too. Everybody else who's going their first time is scared too. Everybody else who's coming back is scared too. The staff is nervous because it's new to them. Like everybody, we all think everybody's got it together. And I just say we're all just trying to figure this out. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Stephanie, and we're gonna so don't worry, we're gonna put all this information in the podcast bio. Jacob, my excellent podcast producer, who I always shout out because he's shy and I like giving him a hard time. But he's gonna put it all together. And anything you want, anything you want to promote in closing, I'll just gonna wrap up. Any social media you want to plug, anything, and no pressure if you don't. I just want to give you a chance.
Yeah. So I think the only thing I would say is like camp is of course a big program for us and we would love to have people apply. But if you are like an adult woman with a disability or someone who just that's not the right program, please check out our website, disabilityempowernetwork.org. We have other programs. We have a public speaking program, a pen pal program, and we just generally can offer support to people if you reach out. So that's disabilityempowernetwork.org. You can also check us out on Facebook, which I don't know if there's a handle, but it's Disability Empower Network.
A
And
big
guess what? So
fan.
is our Instagram. So just
Yeah, just check
Google
it.
us.
It's a great organization and it's got a great website and a great presence. And I'm a big fan of it. I'm so glad we got to connect. And make sure you thank Stephanie for the great work and for letting me have you on the podcast. So bye, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you, Sophie, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.